Hi everyone, my name is Shannon Murphy. I'm a level 3 Franklin Method educator and faculty who specializes in Franklin Method for dance. Today I'll be sharing with you a short Franklin Method practice for the diaphragm. So let's first take a look at one of Eric Franklin's drawings of the diaphragm. So you see here, it resides within the lower 6 ribs. And if we see the fibers at the top here are much shorter than the fibers coming down the side or the back, right? Which gives it sort of a big dome-like shape. It will divide the heart and lungs above it from all of the rest of the digestive organs below it. And yeah, let's see if we can find this in our body, start to see what it feels like to move with. So to find the diaphragm, we'll need to count down the ribs, and we can start that by finding our first chondral sternal joint, but it's underneath our clavicles. So if we can find the clavicles and move the shoulder girdle around a little bit, you may be able to feel where the clavicles meet the sternum. And underneath that, behind that, we'll find our first chondral sternal joint there. Underneath, you'll find a little indentation, a space between. And then you'll be able to count down the second chondral sternal joint. Another space, and then the third set, another space, fourth set, another space, although the space might be getting a little bit tighter, and you'll find the fifth set of the chondral sternal joints there. Maybe we give them a little rub so we can feel where they're located. And then we'll bring our hands to a bit of a dome, sort of mimicking the dome of the diaphragm. And on a nice exhale, the diaphragm might come all the way up behind the fifth rib there. So, you know, the diaphragm being a big dome has some really nice imagery. Maybe sometimes it could feel like a big parachute moving, or my favorite image is often like a jellyfish moving. But I thought this could be nice too. Like, what if we were to imagine it sort of like my hair towel, where the front is much shorter than the sides, and the back sort of cascades down all the way towards my 12th thoracic vertebrae and then beyond. So what if we were to imagine here the diaphragm moving with us, and on a nice exhale, we get this dome diaphragm doming up, and on the inhale, it will move down and out. Exhale, doming the diaphragm. Inhale, diaphragm moving down, getting wider. So let's take just a moment to think about the diaphragm moving in breath. Exhale, diaphragm doming. Inhale, diaphragm getting lower, getting wider. And let's pause there. So let's take a moment and tap the back of the sternum and along the bottom 6 ribs and along our back. And if you'd like, take a nice sigh with me, make some noise. And you might also hear the vibrations from the tapping sort of shaking the sound up. Then you'll know you'll be tapping the diaphragm. Yeah? So the diaphragm is a muscle that contracts and lengthens as we breathe, but it's also going to contract and lengthen in movement. So what if we were just take a little bit of movement through the spine and through the ribs, and think for yourself, okay, when would the diaphragm be getting lengthened, and when might it be getting a little shorter? So any movement that feels good to the ribs and spine while we're thinking of the diaphragm. And if we focus on side bending, and we sort of bring our attention, maybe hands on the ribs, on the lower 6 ribs, could you sort of imagine feeling, okay, clothes, and then skin, and then muscle, and then bones, there are your ribs. And underneath the ribs, we'll find the muscle of the diaphragm. So if I bend over here to the right, I'm noticing that my left side of my ribs are lengthening. And that's gonna mean the diaphragm underneath is lengthening as well. And if I take a side bend then to the left, I'll notice that muscle there is feeling a little bit shorter now. Yeah? So we could say the diaphragm is lengthening apart and it's shortening together. Do that a couple of times. Sliding the diaphragm apart and sliding it together. One more time here on the left side of the ribs, letting it slide apart and slide together and slide apart and slide together. So let's see if we could pair this up with breathing. If I use my hands to sort of mimic the fibers of my diaphragm, right, and I take it down here onto the left side, when I inhale and the diaphragm moves down, I can feel the fibers getting shorter. And when I exhale and the diaphragm domes, the fibers would be getting longer, right? So if we think about that while breathing, we could say, inhale, the fibers slide together. Exhale, the fibers slide apart. Inhale, the fibers slide together. And they slide apart. Inhale, the diaphragm moving down, getting wide, the fibers sliding together. And exhaling, the diaphragm doming and the fibers sliding apart. So if I bring that back into my side bend and the fibers are lengthening for movement, they can also move now for breath. So when I inhale, the diaphragm is going to still get a little shorter. And when I exhale, it's going to get nice and long. Inhale, get a little shorter. Exhale, let it go a little long. Inhale, a little shorter. Exhale, sliding apart, getting longer. And let's do a nice inhale that brings the diaphragm back up to center. Let's take a moment to just notice how that feels in your body. Maybe you could take a deep breath into the left side, just notice how that feels versus taking a deep breath into the right side. Yeah, you might be noticing that your capacity for a deep breath is a little different from the two sides. So let's see if we could do this on the other side to feel a little more balanced out. Imagining the fibers of the muscle moving as I breathe. And as I inhale, the diaphragm comes down, gets wide, and the fibers slide together. And as I exhale, they're going to get slid apart as they dome. Inhale, fibers slide together. Exhale, fibers slide apart. Inhale, slide together. Exhale, slide apart. Let's do with a little bit of side bending. Sliding apart and sliding together. Sliding apart. Sliding together. We can add the breath. Maybe we take an exhale as we side bend. And an inhale as we side bend the other way. Matching the diaphragm fibers lengthening on the exhale and the side bend. And getting shorter. And then let's pause in our side bend over to the to the left, focusing on the right ribs. Drawing our attention underneath the ribs to the diaphragm, inhaling, feeling the diaphragm moving down. And the exhale, the diaphragm doming up. And maybe we feel the fibers getting a little shorter and a little longer and a little shorter and a little longer. A little shorter, all the way doming, lengthening, and then we'll bring it all the way back up to center. And again, just take a moment to notice. Deepening your breath. And for me, now I'm feeling a little bit like the second side has caught up to the first. Yeah, so even just spending a small amount of time figuring out where the diaphragm is and a little bit about how it moves in breathing and a little bit about how it moves as we move our bodies through space, and we might notice we already feel a little bit better. Yeah, so I hope that you enjoyed a little diaphragm practice, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care, everybody.